Hello, hello, and welcome to today's DIY pine tree lesson. We're going to do some fun stuff today to make some pine trees. It's going to end up, the final result are going to be a set of trees that look like this. That's what we're going to do. I've just got my N-scale tree in there just to show you how these look. Um, and we are going to get started in 1 second. I'm realizing that I started the stream without having my one key ingredient available. So let me just grab some furnace filter here and then we'll get started. Okay, just bear with me for 1 second. All right, now I got what I need. All right, so to get started today, I want to go over just a couple of things that are great to have on hand if you want to start a project like this to make some trees, similar to what I have here. First off, you'll need a pair of scissors, obviously. Um, you will need a spray bottle. That helps quite a bit for applying some scenic cement. You're going to want some white glue. I buy a lot of it, so I get it in the big 1 gallon tub, but you're going to need some glue. You obviously need some water as well. Um, you will want some, I call these barbecue skewers. They're wooden. I've already painted them brown. You can paint them brown in advance if you want. And then you'll want some turf. I use woodland scenics. I use woodland scenics turf there. I've got fine turf and earth and weed color as well. Then the other thing I usually have with me are 2 tubs, one for spraying and one for applying the flocking or the turf. And then the final piece I usually have is a piece of foam board. I like to just stick my trees in there to let them dry. All right, so that's what we're going to need to start today's project. So let's go ahead and we'll show you what this is all about. One other optional thing I forgot to mention, as long as I've got you here, I like to have a pencil sharpener to sharpen the ends of my sticks if I need to sharpen them for any reason. That's always very helpful. Sorry, I'm dropping my camera here. My overhead camera is taking a spin. Let me put that up just a bit. Gotta get you set up here. Hold on, friends. Hold on, friends. I lost you, friends. My camera got a little wonky on me. So let me just adjust this a little bit. Yeah, just a little bit back this way. Go a little bit higher yet. Get you. Sorry, guys. I'm just gonna mess with this real fast. All right, that's a little bit better. All right, that's a little bit better. All right, so let's go ahead and get started here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of my skewers here that I've painted already. So you'll see that this is already painted brown, and I use for scaling these, I usually think about how long this stick is, and I know on my hands, I just use my hands to measure because I've already measured this out. If the tree is about as long as my finger, that's about the right length for end scale. I usually add a little bit more just to stick it in the ground. So I'm going to cut that, trim that to about here to start. Oops. That'll be my trunk, right? The next thing I'm going to do to get started is I'm going to take some of this furnace filter. I've already cut it in a strip here, a fine strip. And I'm going to cut some small pieces of this. I'll start with what's going to be at the top is going to be a very small square. Then we'll go with a little bit larger square. And then we'll go with an even larger square. And I may cut one more of those middle-sized squares there. All right, there we go. Looking great. And what you'll see on these as well, there's also this grid material in the back. I usually peel this off. I don't really like that in my final example. It just sometimes looks a little off. So if your furnace has that backing, go ahead and pull that out. You can pull it all out at once or do it piece by piece like I do. Either way works. All right. The next thing I'm going to do here is adjust my camera a little bit. The next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to take these pieces here and I'm going to start to thread them onto, or actually pierce them, and kind of like almost making a shish kebab for the grill. I'm going to go ahead and pull that on all the way to the top. I'm going to take the next largest size and I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to pull that onto the top, and I usually line it up so it's not quite square. You'll see there that I kind of twist them a little bit. I'll pull the next size on, and I'll do the same thing there, not quite onto the top. I'm going to cut myself one more square here while I'm at it. On the side, pull this off, and I'll put that on from the bottom here. And I should be in a pretty good position. All right, so I've got something now that roughly looks in this shape. It's not perfect. It's not shaped perfectly, but it's looking pretty good to start. And I'm going to start to shape this now with a pair of scissors. So let's take a look at how we're gonna do that. So what I do is sometimes I spread these out a little bit, just kind of give them some breathing room, I like to say. Stretch them out. And then the next thing I'll do is I'll take my handy scissors and I'm going to give this tree a little bit of a haircut. Don't worry if the top is showing through. We'll take care of that later. So what I'm going to do is just cut this kind of on an angle. You'll see I'm cutting on an angle here. And I'm just starting to shape it like a pine tree. Okay, top to bottom. And what I have noticed is the closer you can get to cutting the whole tree from top to bottom, all the limbs, the better shape you're going to get on this. So that's kind of what we're doing here. We're just shaping this tree. And hopefully you guys can see from above, it's starting to look more and more in the shape of a pine tree. Doesn't need to be perfect. Just needs to be good enough. And I often like to trim off the corners of those squares because those look unnatural. If you cut square pieces out, just give it a little bit of a haircut there. I'm going to cut these stragglers here. That's looking pretty good. I really like the way that it looks. That looks, pretty much like a tree shape. You can see there, it's looking good. It looks an odd color. That's because it is a green furnace filter, so we're going to add that flocking in a second. But it's starting to look and take the shape of a train. I mean, not a train, a tree. Sorry. So let's get to the next step. So once we've got the shape down, like I've got here, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to soak it in some scenic cement. The scenic cement in the spray bottle is 1 part white glue, 8 parts water, so it's a little bit runny. I'm going to hold it over my container here, and I am just going to soak this tree. You really want to get it wet so that it picks up all the flocking. Usually it's going to start to dribble a little bit like that, and that's perfectly okay. Sometimes I'll even roll it in there just to pick up some extra. I'm going to let that drip dry just a little bit. And then what I'm going to do in parallel here is I'm going to take out my flocking material, and we're going to start to spray that on. So I'm going to hold this over here, and I'm going to shake that on there. And I realize at that angle, you may not be able to see what I'm doing, so I'm going to switch camera view here. So there you can kind of see how I'm just applying that on there. Just taking that on there, getting it all over this to add some natural pine needles, if you will, and that make that look a little bit better. I also like to add a couple of different colors. I find that adding different colors makes it look a little bit more natural rather than one tone. So let's go ahead and add some of this. This is an earth tone from Scenic Woodlands. The other one was called Weeds. Between those two, I'm usually pretty happy with the results. And on these, one of the other tricks is the higher you are away when you're shaking, usually the more even the coating is. Looks a little bit more natural, that one. And then a lot of times what I'll do is on that end there, if it's popping through, if you see the wood part popping through, I'll go into my thing and just grab a few pieces and just kind of put it on there. That's it. That's it. So we got it. That's looking pretty good. And the next thing I'll do is I'll just stick that right in the board. Right? I'll stick it. I'm gonna stick it over here because it's and then we're just gonna let that. We're just gonna let that dry. That's gonna dry. It's gonna be right there, and it's gonna dry, and that's what we're gonna do. Now let's take another one. So that was a pretty tall one. This one, it's going to be about the same size. Sometimes I make them shorter. Sometimes I make them taller. I like to create variety. If you create that variety, it just makes things look more natural. So that's one of the reasons I do that. I don't want it to look too crazy. I'm sorry, I realize you can't see what I'm cutting over here, but so I'm just cutting these down a little bit. So here's my medium size, there's my big size. This is going to be my small size there. I want to do one more kind of medium size one. So let's do one more medium. Okay, and then we're going to skewer this one. Oh, you know what? I forgot to take the bottoms off. Let's get that off of there. Take my stick here, my trunk. Just kind of thread that in there. Take a medium size one. Get that stuck on there. That's looking pretty good. Let's see how much more space I got. I don't have too much more space, so I'm going to do a wide one at the bottom. Let's get that on there. All right, and this is going to be a little shorter tree, and that's perfectly all right. Perfectly all right. And I'm going to go ahead and start giving this one a little bit of a haircut. We're going to shape it. Again, and if you notice, I'll angle this so that I'm cutting all the way from this kind of bottom corner of the tree to the top in one snip. That makes the line look kind of straight and a little bit more realistic when I'm shaping this. Doesn't need to be perfect. Oops. Okay. Again, that's going to be a little bit shorter one. That's okay. A little bit shorter tree. And I give it a turn and just look from the top and make sure it looks okay. Just making sure the shape looks all right. I'm going to trim this a little bit. I don't like how that looks. It's a little square there. Oh, you know what? I noticed I left the bottom. Pull this off, this piece. I left this grid on there that I don't like. Pull that off. Okay, that looks a little better. All right, so that'll be a little bit smaller tree, and that's just fine. I'm going to spray this. Get that set up. Okay, so I've got my glue all over that. That's looking good now. I'm going to go ahead and apply some of my um, flocking here again. Get that going. All right, that's going good. Add some of this other green stuff here. And if we need to spray it with a little bit more glue, we can. You know, sometimes you make a mistake, you add some more. That's fine. Okay. And then once in a while I see some straggly things that I don't like, so I trim those off. I can go trim those later too, that's fine. And I'm going to go ahead and stick that back in my board there. All right, that looks good. What else we got here? Let's see. Here's another one. This one, I'm going to make this one a little longer. Make a nice tall one here. And this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my pencil sharpener because that end is a little blunt. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sharpen that just a little bit. That gives me a nice end that I can stick into the ground. I noticed I am running out of filter here, so I'm going to walk over to my supply area in the room here and just grab some more furnace filters so I can continue working on this. This green furnace filter that I have here, I got at Home Depot. They sell it. It's a type of furnace filter that you cut to size. So that's how that works. You can just buy it in one big sheet, and then you cut it down to the size you want. And it's painted a green. It's close to what you want. Not quite, but I like to say close enough. Close enough to look okay in my book, right? All right, so where was I? Here's my tree. All right, here's my trunk again. I always go from the bottom because I've got the sharp end, so just when you watch when I'm doing it, I'll put the small one on and I'll drag that all the way to the top. Like that. Take my next biggest one, same thing. Stick it at the bottom, bring it up. And then once you get these on here, you can also kind of pull them apart a little bit if you want. Sometimes if you pull them apart, they look a little bit more natural. Not so compact. All right, let's see. Then I'm going to do this one maybe. I think this will be the last one I'm going to do today. That'll be a nice set of trees. I'll have 3 trees for my layout. It should be dry tomorrow. Okay, let's get that one in there. Spread that out just a bit. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and give that, again, give it a little bit of a haircut here. Shape it up. Shape it up. The more you shape these, you know, the longer you spend on shaping it, the better they look. This is the tough part. Nobody wants to give these trees a haircut, but if you do, that's really what makes the difference between a great tree and and an okay tree. It's really how much time you spend trimming your tree. Let's try that really good there. Okay, that's looking good. Just thinking about ordering a pizza. I'm getting hungry, my friends. I'm getting real hungry. All right, let's see. I got a little bit there. Maybe a little bit here. Okay, that, I feel like that looks like a pretty good tree. So let's go ahead and sometimes I'll take my thing and I just soak it in there, because why not? You can do the top with it just fine. Get at least some of it done. All right. Add some more on that. You want these things nice and wet, by the way. Really wet. The wetter the better. That's when they work really good. Shake it out, shake it out, shake it out. Then we'll go over here. And again, we'll shake a little bit of that on there. Get that process started. Okay, that's looking good. Let's do a little bit more on this one here. Christmas snow, look at that. Not really snow, but looks pretty good. Okay. Let's see. You can pick up some of that stuff you drop in there and use it. That's okay. That's what I like to do. So if I keep this bin here, I can kind of shake it, and then you see the dry stuff is in the corner, and I can use that. And that's a nice mix. It's a nice mix of both shades, so it looks really good. Shake it off a little bit, and then we're going to stick that in there, and we're going to let that dry. That's looking good. All right. So, my friends, let's take one more look at those. That's what the final product looks like, which I think they look pretty good. Pretty happy with that. We'll let those dry overnight. We'll put those back on the layout probably tomorrow. And I've got, a handful of them here. I might do one or two small ones when I finish the live here. But I want to thank you. Thanks a lot for hanging out with this special DIY pine trees for your layout. That was a ton of fun to do that with you. This is what they're going to look like once I get them on the board next to my train. Try it yourself. It's not hard. It doesn't cost a lot. It just takes a little bit of effort and time. Thanks for stopping by. And don't forget, you can always follow me here on YouTube. I'm also over at TikTok with the same handle, transportation.com. And I'm also on, believe it or not, I'm also on Instagram as well. I'll put up my social icons right there for you if you want to follow me on those channels. Really appreciate it.